10:30.
That's the stuff.
Yeah.
Righto.
Yeah.
Sure. You coming to the table?
Certainly.
See what she's like?
Here. No. So Mark, but Bronwyn's not here.
I'll start on time, it's down 10:30.
Yeah.
Kia ora, everybody, welcome to this meeting of the Central Otago District Council. And I'd like to get it underway this morning with Karakia, Councillor Brown.
Ngā mihi o te rā, ki te whānau e huhu nei, ki e tau te rangimario, ki e whakatapua tātou, mena mea, i whakapona ana tātou, haumie, hui, tātou. And that is greetings of the day to whānau gathered here. Let peace be with us and may we respect each other and what we believe.
Thank you. So we'll move on now to our apologies, and you'll notice that's clearly one from our Worship Mayor. Tim's out of town today. He will be joining us. I think he's online probably now till about 11:30. So an apology from Mayor Tim for an early departure, and also an apology from Councillor Kearney. Someone like to move. Payment seconded, Lindsay, all in favour? And we've done that now. Public forum, we have no public forum this morning. And the next item then is on our agenda, which I should have had in front of me, which is the confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held on the 28th of February. Someone like to move that be confirmed as a true agreement. Tamer, seconded Sally, in favour? It's carried. Thank you. And item number 24.3.1 is declarations of interest. They are recorded in the agenda on page, you see, it's just escaping me. So the reminder is to make sure that you need to be vigilant, stand aside from decision making when a conflict arises, and any private or other external interests that you have. I trust that all those declarations are up to date. If they're not, please advise now, or if you see something between now and the next meeting, let Wayne know. Thank you. And now we move on to our reports. And the first item under the report section is item 24.3.2, which is a paper on the Minnesota Irrigation Company proposed merger, and Wayne is going to take us through that. And I think we have online Jeremy Anderson from the Minnesota Irrigation Company.
Yep. Okay, so we received word that of this merger, Minnesota Irrigation Company, about a month, 6 weeks ago, and we found through the delegations that should come before council to make a decision, and so that's essentially what it is today in the appendix or the appendices, all the information that was given to us regarding the merger is there, and Jeremy is standing by if there's any questions. So, is there any questions?
Thank you, Wayne. Questions? Anything Wayne would like to add?
Jeremy.
Jeremy's. I knew I meant. Thank you. Jeremy, is there anything you'd like to add just to make sure councillors
well, hopefully the information we provided is fairly clear and makes a bit of sense. I suppose, I mean, you know, if you look at the why of the merger, we have three distribution companies for the three different races on the scheme, and MIC is owned by those three distribution companies. You know, we have the Loganburn Dam that supplies the water to all three. We have, you know, 4 different boards of directors made up of our farmer shareholders, and you know, we're at a point where getting people to represent their irrigation company is becoming increasingly challenging. As everyone's busier and busier, we put in a management structure in MIC 3 years ago, so we now have, you know, my role as GM and a business support manager and our operations people. So basically, MIC is overseeing and pretty much running the whole business, including the distribution companies now. So intuitively, we sort of thought it was an opportune time to bring all of the companies into one for all sorts of reasons, efficiency, so cost saving. You know, basically we're working towards renewing our consent in 2034, so building a strong database of water use and things like that through one cohesive company makes a lot more sense, and also providing us the opportunity then to look at working with other water users in a group management sort of capacity to you know, deal with the ORC in terms of consent renewals and other regulatory obligations that we're all going to have going forward. So yeah, I'm open to questions, but from where we sit and the MIC board sits, it just makes sense that we bring all those companies into one and act as a sort of unified community of irrigators going forward.
Thanks, Jeremy. Any questions? So the recommendations from staff are they haven't given a preferred option, and the recommendation C is to authorise the chief executive to vote on the proposed merger as council directs. So looking for direction, is there a view that we should be supporting what is proposed?
I think we should be supporting.
Look quite good. I thought there were some great aspects in there, especially around the future proofing and the ability to split shares now, which I think came into it, which aligns with people doing farm succession planning, and the ability to appoint an independent director. I think it is moving in the right direction.
Any other thoughts? Any thoughts to the contrary? So recommendation A to receive the report, B notes the merger documents provided by the company, and C then I'll take should be what we propose that authorise the chief executive to vote in favour of the proposed merger. Yep, yeah, good stuff. So I'll move in that direction. I'll move there. Seconded. It's going to call your name. That's not my name, Sarah.
What was it? Tracy? Long person on the side of the table?
No.
I don't feel that was his comment.
Oh.
No, it wasn't.
Right, stop. Right. We moved to the second. Any more discussion? No. All in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. Cool. Thank you. Thanks, Wayne. Thank you, Jeremy. Thanks, Jeremy.
Thanks everybody, and thank you for your support.
No problems. Now, item 24.3.3 is the representation review, results of the free consultation and formal proposal on the representation arrangements. And welcome to the table. Oh, Wayne, you again.
Yeah, along with
I got to start here and who you are?
It's gonna be a long day. No,
It's not Finley Bob.
this is next.
No, sorry, my apologies. Just a bit called you windy.
Finley Bob.
Right, we're in your capable hands, team.
Okay, so I'll start. Okay, so representation review, again, a reminder carried out every 6 years to make sure that council makeup is reflective of the community it serves, and our review is this year. So over the past 6 months, we've explored possible options for consideration, explored any appetite for changing the existing arrangements and other options that we could consider. And then you'll remember, is it the last meeting? Yes, the last meeting. No, the meeting before, we discussed a pre-consultation document, and that's gone out and come back, and you'll see the results of that pre-consultation in the appendices. And so, yeah, those are the results. And now from here, we can move on to an initial proposal, which is the next step in the representation review.
And can I just add, we're a wee bit ahead of our timeline, which is a nice place to be. Why we brought it forward is because of the annual plan consultation early in May, and then for future decision by this council is potentially distributisation from the heels of that. So hence why this is in front of you now. But open to questions from councillors.
Is it worth just going through the key points that have come back, so we can have a conversation about each of them? And because I'm picking that just recommendation we made is that we decide which statement should be part of the proposal for the representation review.
Yep.
And I guess it's about what does the proposal look like? Because
Yep.
I'm not sure that's right here, so I think.
Yeah.
To lead us through to get to that position, but say here goes the proposal we're developing. So I wonder if it would be worthwhile just going through the submission or through the discussion you've given us.
So, yeah, so I've got a number of titles there. And there was, so for the 79 submitters in pre-consultation, which, I mean, in the grand scheme of things is, but actually, I thought it was pretty good. I was quite happy with that. To be fair, I was thinking there might be 20 or 25 people who might be interested. So I think at least myself, I was pretty happy with that response rate. So the first question we had asked is whether they want to elect councillors by ward or at large. And the certainly the overwhelming majority there was that it should stay as ward-based. So I don't know if that's worthy of any further discussion.
Because we spoke previously about because some of those comments were around the loss potentially of a voice of Maniatoto and Teviot, if that were to be the case.
Yeah.
But you had also crunched the numbers if they remained their outliers, so there was still a Maniatoto ward and a Teviot ward and a Cromwell and Vincent were elected at large, but those numbers didn't fit within the criteria. Is that correct?
No, they did. What we did was we did an exercise where we said, okay, so Teviot and Maniatoto would stay as one, and then would have a joint, what essentially would be at large, a joint Cromwell Vincent like super ward, if you want to call it that. It's technically at large because it's the rest.
Yeah.
And that's discussed later on, and there was, I guess, not a lot of favour found with that idea. That wasn't a mix because it was something that could technically work. Whether it was people loved it or not, another matter, but that was one that wasn't going to work with the numbers. Yeah. Yeah.
Any questions in that area? No? Yes.
Number of wards, we asked about that, and pretty much everyone said that they were quite content with 4 wards.
And that, just as an observation, that sort of leads to what you just said about not going to at large for the rest. So the themes coming through from those other questions. And sort of telling us, said the status quo is so far what I'm picking up, it keeps on coming through.
Pretty much, I think. Also, when we talked about ward boundaries, 54 of the 79 said that they were happy with existing boundaries. We did sort of flirt with the idea of maybe putting something here and something there, but in the end, it looks like most people are pretty happy with where ward boundaries are. There were a number of people who were unsure. Perhaps they were confused where the boundaries were, or there could be another reason there. But the majority of folks seem to be pretty happy with that.
I think the fiddling, that's wrong word. The moving of boundaries, unless it takes numbers with it, doesn't achieve much.
No, well, like we thought, as an example, like what if St. Bathans is part of the Maniatoto, for instance, by for argument's sake, there's actually not a great deal of population that would move over to Maniatoto. If you're looking to have more people in that ward, for instance. Yeah. We asked about the number of community boards, and then again, most folk were pretty happy with where it was, and I guess that goes back to what we were talking about before with the 4 wards, and so that makes sense. And I don't know if anything further needs to be talked about with that. One that will need to be talked about, I think, which was quite interesting, is the names of the 4 wards. like fundamentally in the naming, you can see that most people were happy with the name, with the names. We'll just go into talking separately about the Maniototo spelling. And I don't know if you want to leave that until we've gone through some of the other stuff, or we want to tackle it.
Just do the other names first, because of the Vincent I'm picking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I just wondered, because there has been some comments from people in Clyde and then out in Oakdale way as well, that they feel that they don't necessarily align with the Vincent Ward name, and I wondered if perhaps Martin or Lindley, if you recall when it changed, whether Dunstan is considered as a name or.
It was dismissed because it sort of, people couldn't even relate to that either, because the reason Vincent was chosen over Alexandra was because it was after the amalgamation of the Clyde and Maniototo sort of was a separate ward.
Yeah.
And parochialism was ruling on the day, so the compromise was put to use the word Vincent.
So I wondered if, Clyde has an affinity to Vincent as well as Alex, and then looks at the Dunstan Mountains, and evidently previously, if you competed in sports back in the day, you competed with the Dunstan name.
I think the obvious history also said that Vincent was the everything but the Alexandra borough.
Yeah.
Until you got to Maniototo and Cromwell.
Right.
So by amalgamating the Innisfil Manahira ward with the Alexandra ward, the Vincent name came through, because that reflected the majority of the area. And one of the other things that I recall was that the name Dunstan then could lead to confusion with Lake Dunstan and Cromwell.
I mean,
It was part of that as well. So that's my recollection of how it came about. Louise?
And if I can add, I think also there's a Dunstan ward for the Otago Regional Council, and there was some comment about confusion.
it possibly is the time to test the waters a bit more with just, as Cromwell ward reflects Isa, Bannockburn, Lowburn, etc.
Don't get terrace.
No, don't put terrace.
Yeah.
And terrace, etc. That we could refer to ourselves as Alexandra as encompassing all those the outliers, Clyde and Oakdale and Ophir. Whether it's going to offend the people out there.
I don't think Clyde will be overly thrilled with being
I think
referred to
we'll
as
throw it up.
Alexandra.
Right, happy with that? So the quick spelling of Maniototo, when was it looked at?
Okay.
Yeah.
So we found with the spelling for the pre-consultation, it came back exactly 50-50 in support of a change or not. And we broke it down just a bit further to folk who were actually answering the questionnaire from Maniototo, and that too was 50-50, which I thought was quite interesting. Now, in addition to that, we canvassed the community board as to whether they were in support of that name change, and they weren't. Likewise, we've talked with Okaha on the current position that Matahi have on the name, and currently they're neutral on that name change as the current position. So I think it's evenly split. It's yeah.
It's the only guidance, if you like, I could bring to it. So I recall many years ago, we did effectively, I'd say it's a referendum, we did a question about fluoridation. And I recall the numbers being about 5% different between yes and no, with about 10% being uncertain. And the council today said, hasn't done overwhelmingly majority enough to actually make the change. And So I guess using that logic, if you like, if you haven't got the overwhelming mood for change, and we're hearing that the local board, they're elected by the community are saying no, and then the community of the people that responded, which is a small sample size, 50-50, Okaha, who probably is important to them, are saying actually neutral. I guess you can be bold and promote a further discussion, or you can say, well, leave it the way it is and see if there's a mindset out there that says to change it. Neither way is wrong, I don't think.
I tend to agree with what my Tahu was saying, because, they're remaining neutral, so maybe we should too, until wait till the National Geographic Board make the decision and take the steer from them.
So we had 12 people respond to the Manitoba, 5 on the community board voted 5-0.
Yeah,
To represent the community, when's that survey going to override? But
exactly.
I mean, my argument is it shouldn't have got on here for a start when we asked that when it came out originally, and the council's position is not going to change because we're in association with Akaha and the name spelling will be the same, correct? Or does this change that back?
No, I think the council staff position is that we will use the correct spelling for Maniapoto. What the council recommends today is what do you go out on your proposal to call the name of the Maniapoto community board? Do you stick the same name, the incorrect spelling, or do you change it to the correct spelling? That's really the question. We're content in our position from a staff perspective on how we will treat that name. The issue around the National Geographic Board, that's an interesting one. Someone might be able to talk to the process, but if I use the example from Pitaoni or Petone in Wellington, what happened there? It came up through the council. Council supported the changing of that name. They didn't, I'm not sure if they actually consulted on that, because what happens when it goes to the geographical board, and it's now gone to the geographical board, they have to go through due process where they then have to go out to consultation. So they have their own consultation. So when we say we wait for the geographical board to make a decision, I'm not actually sure that anyone's put that proposition. Someone has to put it to the geographical board. And in the case of Lower Hutt, they put it to the geographical board. And they're still working through their process because it hasn't changed. Yeah. They've recommended it change. Now that board will do its own thing and work its way through its own process and will consult with the impacted communities and then base a decision how timely it is. But I'm not aware of anything being put in front of the geographical board on this particular naming convention. So it would only be reflected in our terminology and not on maps or not on place names or anything like that.
Does that pose any potential issues whereby, for example, somebody is Googling for the Maniapoto Community Board and it's spelled differently on the council website? Will that?
I think Google's algorithm is pretty good. Most things people enter in is incorrectly spelled and it still pops up with the right answer. An answer.
Can I text to ask, when the geographical board makes a decision, does that have any legal status or?
Well, it does, it changes the name. So on the, whatever master database they use, so you'll start seeing signs would reflect the corrected spelling if the geographical board.
So there's a number of organisations that would follow that recommendation.
And then one would assume that one of the ones that follows would reflect the name of Manitoba, and if the geographical corrected it, that may or may not.
Yeah.
And no one actually knows.
No.
So the key thing for us is saying that you've got no overwhelming majority either way.
Well, we had as far as our community boards are concerned. They're democratically elected every 3 years, and they made a decision that no.
That aside, we've also got at the moment that my Tahu are saying we're neutral towards it. My logic would say if they're not pushing it, then I would have thought it would be for an interest group like them to present. And then what we do internally is what we do internally.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Well, that's fine.
But the board name would probably stay the same at Maniapoto. And if someone through the formal process wants to.
And I guess that formal process will be started by us or Notato. The company will be started by.
No, the formal process is a representation review. If we go out saying status quo spelling, and we get submissions that say, actually, no, you should correct it, then we get a chance to reconsider. And I think my gut feel says probably given what we've
in front of us.
got in front of us is probably the way to go.
So do we take that out of the recommendations that we have now, or?
We haven't got any recommendations yet. We're making them now.
I've got some ready and then the end we can have.
Yes, yeah. So that might be in the recommendation at the end, I don't think, wait to see.
Yeah, no, I've got a series of recommendations that's every possible, information.
We'll go through
And
that.
then you can go to the.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah,
And Wayne, just for my benefit, so we did talk about the Vincent Ward spelling, so but is the feel that it's going to stay the same? So I guess.
I don't think I heard anything in the conversation that said that there's going to be a change in that ward name. But, right, next, okay.
so we'll move on to the number of councillors, apportioned to each ward. Now, what I'll do is I'll bring up my, my all-powerful spreadsheet here. With the numbers. So these are our numbers and, yep, stand the same way. It was really small, really easy to see. Yeah, there we go. So this is what it is currently. And you'll remember, from previous times that, the difference, from the quota should be, plus or minus 10%. So as you can see, technically there, Cromwell is underrepresented in this spreadsheet. So we gave three options. Well, we thrashed out a number of ideas with the Local Government Commission to see whether they would fly or not. Some pie in the sky, some pretty, I guess, normal. And what we came up with was three ideas. So what we talked about earlier on with a super ward of Vincent and Cromwell that would have come within plus or minus 10%. All the other ideas were to have parity between Cromwell and Vincent wards to be either 4-4 or 5-5. Well, no, we couldn't have 3-3 because I actually asked that.
You were supposed to get.
Oh, I asked the question because you know, like you could extrapolate it backwards and say, well, you know, like it's supposed to be parity. Why couldn't it be 3-3? But the Local Government Commission thought that would be, I think it was an underrepresentation. So we're back with 5-5 or 4-4. Most in the pre-consultation said 4-4, but it was quite close. And then languishing quite far behind was the super ward, sort of idea 7. Yeah. And so this is one of the things that must change, because we're out of kilter as far as things go. So I'll show you, so this is what it looks like 4-4. And I've been told by the Local Government Commission that 10.84 was okay, as far as these things go.
Just to give me, could you do 3-3?
Yep.
Just because I think it's important to understand that.
So that was, see, it's quite a way out. And of course, that's
So three.
So 3-3 will not fly.
no, I checked in.
3-3.
You got the halfway. You've got a half here already. I'm sorry. Now no one I can be so tiny. He's representing so many people.
So that's that, and then 5-5. If I show you, did I show you 5-5?
No.
So that's 5-5.
I don't want 5.
So it does fit in the plus or minus 10%, but of course there'll be one more person in the table. And I found out a new word. You're interested?
New word.
Yep.
We'll give you sure.
Triskaidekaphobia, the fear of the number 13. Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
Jeez.
So just to humour me for a minute.
Yeah.
What did it 3-4?
For which?
3 for Cromwell, 4 for Vincent. Just wanted to see what it does. Well,
See, it puts it way out. Yeah.
4 is going to be.
So it has to, in the end, to make the plus or minus 10%, it has to be parity. Yeah.
You know, I
So-
feel like a turkey voting for Christmas, it has to be called for.
Yeah, right.
Well, no, the answer,
Put it on 3-3.
Yeah, my logic says, but for a formula.
Yeah.
And because someone says that plus or minus 10% means that Nigel can't represent all those people. I don't get it, to be perfectly honest.
No.
Because when you go to the big cities, you know, we're representing, in this case, 6,650 in the Cromwell ward. There's probably people in the Christchurch ward that are representing 26,000 people.
Yeah.
You know, a bit extreme, but it'll be a whole lot more. So I just don't get the relevance of the plus or minus 10%.
Yeah, well, we're representing 26,000 people, 10 of us, and some of those people, we one of them represented.
yeah, and I'm gonna say the other thing with the quotas, of course, is that the two smaller wards do bring that sort of down a little bit.
Yeah.
So that.
I mean, that dragged us back.
That was your comment, not mine.
Adding value is what you need to say.
I don't think we should just get rid of all of them.
But we can, what if we say, having to think the ward should.
My apologies, that comment was uncalled. Carry on.
One.
Well, just 1-1.
Yeah, it's a positive change here.
Right, so I think what you're saying is both the feedback we got and then the numbers that we have to work towards, that it's steering its way to a 4-4
Yes.
split.
Definitely.
And it was pretty close last time to doing something similar, but it was part of the logic was the change that took place to bring Ernest Manahira Kia and Alexander together. It was to
There's a compromise.
compromise to change because it was a pretty big change. Any questions or thoughts about that while we're on that on that subject then?
No.
Working through? Cool.
And I guess that, highlight that will work for now, but in 5 or 6 years' time, when we review it,
Yeah, I was going to say that.
population numbers might mean that.
Yeah,
And who's to say that then super wards don't become more of an option for whatever, because the community may change that much. And, you know, that's the reality.
oh, yes, and these are oldish numbers, because the 2023 numbers are coming out in May. It's like, correct me if I'm wrong, Nick, we've started with these numbers, so we had to finish with these numbers?
Yeah, so these numbers are based on Statistics New Zealand's annual population estimates. We obviously all filled in that census form for a while back. We're still waiting on that, which should bring more into account, but we can't use it. So we've got to start with one data set and we can have to continue on the whole process. So this data came out November, December this year, and it's as of June, July 2023.
Right, yeah. So,
Absolutely. Community boards.
next we've got, investigation into mining wards. So we've asked this question, and what came back was that there wasn't an appetite to be exploring any ward this time. And once again, we've engaged with Okaha, and they've got they don't support that proposal at this time.
And just in addition, there was an indication that legislation would change, so we don't meet the threshold, what's kind of done in word anyway. There is requirements in the Act around a threshold that you must meet to be able to have a Māori ward, and we don't have enough Māori in our district. That answers that one.
And then finally, numbers of councillors appointed to community boards. So we've asked the question, well, first of all, Manitoba and Tevia are not involved in that bit, because obviously they only have one, so you can't, there's no other way. But we asked whether Vincent and Cromwell could be kept at what it is now, 3, or could it be changed to 2, or could it be changed to 1? I was looking at my notes there. No clear preference from respondents.
Why couldn't it be changed to 1?
Well, it could. It could is the answer.
Because if it is, if we give more power or more understanding community power to the community boards to have a more free and open and frank discussions, especially if we go down the delegations line and on. Well, because you'll actually have a better representation of your community. I mean, was a thought from me, and all.
The, bearing in mind though, Stu, that there's always a requirement for a minimum of 4 elected members to a community board, and those appointed can never exceed the 4. So, and the history here for us is that typically our community boards, when we had the extra Ernest Manahira Award and then Alexandra, all the councillors were appointed back to a community board. And as we've evolved to make those changes, for the first time, you had a situation where with the combined Ernest Manahira there was too many councillors to appoint back. So you had to elect 6, I think, to get 5 back. And Cromwell had the same issue with only 3 of the 4 elected members going back. And I think that, Wayne, what you're saying is that nothing compelling anyway, was it?
It said that, I'll just read what I said there, no clear preference. It was, yeah, 3 or 1 was pretty much, yeah, and there was a little bit of difference between them, but not much. Certainly not an overwhelming, if you're looking for something like that, like an overwhelming response saying.
Could I speak please now? Can you hear me now?
Yeah, and I'm to start.
Sorry, I can't figure out how to put my hand up, and any large cafe was noisy or small cafes were too close, so I'm sorry if there's background noise. Just in terms of being mayor and the 3 times I've had to go through appointing people to committees from council and portfolio leads and so forth, my preference at this stage would be that we go to and 1 appointed on the committees. I think that, on the boards. I think that councillors are just getting busier and busier and busier as the workload and everything that we have to do as councillors increases. And this is one way that it could be considered to go, well, that could actually take some pressure off some councillors from the workload into the next term. It's just a consideration that I've had on my mind.
Any thoughts about what Tim's saying? He's saying 1, I think, on the basis that it would reduce workloads. And yeah.
I think it still provides that conduit and then, you know, gives the community boards that kind of more community board feel. But that was kind of, did you think that, Martin, when we spoke about it at BCB, that there was an appetite for it to be 1 councillor as opposed to 3?
Yes.
How would you get on in the situation where we've seen some apathy towards people standing for community boards?
I think that would actually help with people standing for community boards, because currently there's in some circles, there seems to a feeling that community boards are fairly impotent because they're dominated by the council sitting on the table.
Clearly from people that have actually been to a meeting to see what actually happens. I might suggest.
Maybe.
Stu, give you and Sally, maybe the question is to go to you guys and say, if for argument's sake that we were able to appoint 2 more councillors to your community board to join you, that'd be helpful. Unhelpful. Will not make a blind bit of difference because it works well.
Because our community board usually stands up for what it was and expects the council to take that information back to council and bring that information back from council to community board. And I'm a bit of a, if you want people to stand for a community board where they have a feeling of value, we're better off having strong community boards where we have people really there, and then they may pick out of that. I've only grown up with it. So at the end of the day, we've had to rely on a council to be a link to council, and they lobby is the word, whatever the decision they want at council by the council and the community board. And really, to be fair, I can understand if you have too many councillors on your community board, what's the point of having a community board? So let the community board have strength and numbers, and really they then lobby, they have to come to lobby your councillor, and the council brings that information back, so they become the link from community to the council.
I think as well with Tim's idea of letting the chair of the community board have a chance every quarter at council as well. I think that would be really.
And only in the last big time, it hasn't been the councillor usually. Usually the councillor most times has been the chair of the community. The last couple of terms that has changed. But
And my question really was the opposite way around, was to ask you guys how you felt you would cope with just one, not three, because we've always just had one. So I had the opposite question.
My gut feel would tell me that it should work every bit as well. But then there's also sometimes you don't know what you don't know. And when you're sitting here and we'll take the Cromwell Ward, there's 4 councillors sitting here, and there's a bit of knowledge around those 4 councillors. And if for whatever reason, you're in a situation you could lack, that can happen no matter what. People don't get elected and all those things. So I think my gut feel would say is that you have to make it work. But it would really, in the case of those boards that are going back to Cromwell and going back to, say, one councillor, it'll make it a lot more involvement and work for those elected members on that board. They will have to do a heck of a lot more, in my view.
And the other thing to consider is where we actually end up as far as our delegations are concerned, because.
Yeah, that shouldn't, we can't do that.
I know.
We end up here. The other thing that does happen about this, I think, which is worth noting, is that what it would mean is that in terms of remuneration to councillors, because you're not, under our current remuneration, we remunerate councillors appointed back to community boards, you will leave more back in the pool to increase the councillor remuneration without being appointed back to a community board. So that will, so all the councils benefit from that as well. So, dropping it back by 4 elected members is going to make a reasonable difference. In terms of the salary, it might be $500 a year or 1,000, but it will be something. So that is an upside.
And I think that loophole of the councillor being appointed to the community board is that chair is going to get a say at this table. So I think that helps that issue as well.
In that situation, it would be really good and beneficial that the chair was not the councillor.
Yeah.
So that you actually have two legs, if you like. You know what I mean? You've got your chair with a voice, and you've got your councillor with a voice.
You can't control that. Community board members will determine that, and when there's 4 of them and 4 of them and 1 councillor to make a decision about chair, if those 4 can't pick one, then someone's wrong.
yeah, so there's a vote. You could have a brand new community board that we've got no experience and understanding at all. And then your link might be your councillor who would naturally be a chair. And it has changed, but in the present environment we're going into now, I would suggest the status quo stays the same, because we're going in some really rocky water. That if one councillor on your, especially Vincent and Cromwell, there's going to be a hell of a lot of pressure with the rate rise and the pressure environment now. That workload can be split 3 ways. It puts an enormous amount of pressure when we're going to walk into the dungeon in the next year of uncertainty until we get things sorted out. That pressure comes off one appointed. In our situation, we'll just have to live with it, but
It shouldn't be on one person, it should be on every member of the community board, because that's your responsibility as a
it doesn't seem to
community
go.
board member. It will just be everybody carrying their weight.
So is there a school of thought that says 3 or 1?
I'd like to see it go out to the consultation and the recommendation of 1.
Yeah.
So if it were 1, so at the moment, 4 community board elected members, and if we take Cromwell, 3 council members, take 2 of those away, you've now got a community board of 5.
Yes. Yeah. And Vincent is currently, how many elected?
3 and 4, there was 7.
So both boards, both Cromwell and Vincent are the same.
Yes.
4 elected and 3 appointed. Yeah. So Tony's raised a good point, is maybe the option to consider, and we'll get to it shortly, is it might be that we make the proposal to make the big change and then let people have their say, and don't be surprised if we end up at 2 type thing. I think it would be the thing to consider, I think, is saying that you can leave the status quo, but actually if you want to make some changes, something that's to be bold. We're getting no clear direction either way yet. We have a chance to probably in this particular one to say, well, we can lead some change.
I agree with Tim though that you know, take the workload off councillors, but we also would average out the stress and the pressure on the councillor, because while we have a community board, especially in our corner, the community board don't get the same grief as the council gets. Because the council is the council, so.
Anyway, so that's probably the
Can I just-
conversation. Sorry,
Sorry, just
sure.
one- sorry. With regard to the community board, and in that situation, the workload then would possibly increase for the community board members. What about the remuneration for them? I mean, they don't get paid well
No,
for the amount of work that they actually do.
no, unfortunately, we can't be in control of that either.
Yeah,
We get told you will pay this amount.
yeah.
It'll be interesting to see what sort of feedback we get about that. And having come up in this room, having a long involvement in community boards, everybody does a different level of work. And you'd argue there's already some probably out there that don't do much and get the same remuneration as someone that does 3 times as much. That's not going to change. So I don't think that that's.
Work for the love.
You don't see. Any other questions then on the consultation side of things? Wayne, do you want to take us to where you got to next?
Yep.
The number's going to right.
So that's reaching the end of all that stuff.
Yeah.
So now I've got some recommendations now. Am I hearing correctly? Looking at one.
I think. Do you have type for one?
Yeah. We'll get it up first.
Yeah, so I think it's fair assumption.
Okay, that's cool. I will just.
Something like a bit earlier.
Formulated.
Yes, here was something I prepared earlier with all the. I've deleted all the ones that are not applied. So C and D are different. So B, noting the submissions. So the initial proposal to keep, so the status quo, except for these changes. So reducing the amount of councillors to Vincent Ward to 4, reducing the appointed councillors to 1, and then agreeing to go to public consultation on this proposal.
Looks pretty simple when you see it like that.
We like to keep it that way.
It's quite a significant change,
Oh, it is.
especially as far as councillors on community boards are concerned. And the positive thing which come out of that is that it may drive a more ground-based sort of consultation process. The downside is the weakness of people sitting around that table with no knowledge or experience.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. So
It'll be,
except for those two.
on us to
Everything's.
Well,
be putting it in, rubbing up
Except for
people
those.
saying.
an individual to be appointed.
I wonder if one of the, so is there any dissension, not dissension, is there any counter views to recommendation that's been put up there?
Neil,
Yes,
are you there, Neil? Yeah, sorry, I wasn't there for the discussion on Maniatoto spelling, and I can see the way the room has gone. I just had a couple of comments, if I may, as discussion before the motion. I have in my life, I think, had twice where I've said to people, my name is pronounced Cadogan, and I've said, no, it's not, it's pronounced Cadogan. And I've got to comment on those people. So I was initially quite strongly in favour of making a change, but then on your suggestion of having looked at local government commission precedent with the Lawrence Tuapeka decision that I put out, where although not exactly on point, the local government commission went strongly with the board's view. We know the board's view here, so I am reluctantly in favour of the course that's been taken solely on the basis that that seems to be it is the board's view, and that holds precedence at the local government commission, and so I'm content to move forward with the way things are. And I'm going to have to leave now, so I'll see you back later in the afternoon. I'll wait for the vote on this. I might have another couple of minutes. Thank you.
Good. Thanks, Tim. So my question is in terms of the process that we follow, if we're looking at D, we haven't thought about whether we're going to appoint a particular committee, because in the past we've appointed external people to receive the submissions and those things, or we're going to keep this in-house?
It is, yeah.
Yes, and so this proposal means that we will hear the submissions, we will make the recommendation. In the past, we have on at least one occasion, if not two, and I can't. We have gone and met Jill Naylor and the team, and
Wasn't that because there was a petition calling for that?
possibly can't remember, but so the key thing here is that this
I think
The recommendation I've got before us says this is what, we're gonna run this process.
Yeah,
Definitely. Yeah,
Yeah.
cool. I think it might, actually, I think I know one was, is because of the change in ministry manager here, Alexander. We said, because of that, we might just take it away from us, who've got vested interest, the turkey's voting for Christmas.
And if 5% or so ratepayers can petition the council for a poll.
Oh, yeah, nothing was that though either.
No, okay.
No, sure.
Right, okay, so the recommendation that Wayne had, pulled together after the pre-consultation process and our comments
I'm
today.
happy to move.
Second.
Moved Martin, seconded Tamer. Is there any further discussion, questions, clarifications? I'll put that in. All those in favour?
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, Wayne and the team for getting that done.
And just sorry, when are we now going to consult on this, what the time frame?
So we will get this together early next week and we will be going out really soon with this. Yeah, within the next sort of week or 10 days.
And there's a special consultative process, it'll be 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
And we will be emailing out everybody who has submitted through the pre-consultation process and putting it out to the vote.
Cool.
Yeah, we're trying to avoid too much of an overlap with the annual plan consultation, so there will be a little overlap, but we're trying to minimise that.
Thank you. And thanks to the team from this together, Wayne, for your work and preparing for where we're going to get to and reading the room before the room we got together. Made things a lot easier. Appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item number 24.3.4, which is the 24-25 annual plan and 25-34 LTP hearing process review. And Christine is going to take us through that and Saskia there as well, looks like.
So this report came about after a long-term plan workshop where elected members actually asked staff to investigate what options there were to widen the demographic of the community who are engaged during the consultative hearing process. It's quite an interesting process to delve into and definitely a hot topic around the country too. So what we've come to you today is to recommend that due to the timeframes being very tight, as you keep hearing, for the annual plan process, that we just stay with status quo at the moment. But moving forward, and we just need an amendment there, Wayne, around our recommendation, it approves the following procedural amendments to the long-term plan and annual plan hearing process from July 2024.
Correct, so that would mean that we would run this for the LTP process, so we would get our annual plan signed by the 30 June this year, and that we would implement this new process for the LTP.
Great, so we're looking at changing the hearings, will be renamed to the hearing of oral submissions to make it seem a little bit less formal. Also, the time between the hearing of oral submissions and deliberations, what that is going to allow is for staff to actually be able to comment on those oral submissions as well, because often people do write sort of these summary points, but they may go into other points when they're talking. So it gives us time to do that. And also the hearings of oral submissions will be made outside of work hours and also via audio visual link, and audio visual link is a statutory requirement as well, but we're getting all pretty well in tune with that since COVID, so we're all good there. And oral submissions, submitters will be able to present in English, New Zealand sign, or Te Reo. So that is the recommendations. Any questions?
Questions? Pretty comprehensive. Move. No question.
Yeah, on page 153 at the top, it says the option for submitters to make either a written or oral submission is provided. Just to clarify, that's an either or, not both. Because in the past we've had people make a written submission and then come and make an oral one as well. Will they have to choose one or the other?
We're looking at moving forward to choose one or the other. We're just trying to work around how we're going to record exactly how what they're going to say at the oral submission. To do sort of give us some key points. Also to make sure that staff are available as well to listen in, but we're also looking at the possibility of recording and having those timeframes of this submitted talk between this time and this time, and they covered these key points. So we're just sort of fine tuning that at the moment, but that is a good point.
And I also just wondered, we've changed the name to make it less intimidating, and I just wonder, There was some comments there around a subset of elected members and staff and whether there would be the ability to be in different spaces, such as hearing in the library or a community house or the resource centre of Cromwell, something like that, as opposed to coming to the council chambers.
Yeah, absolutely, and we looked at that, those sort of options as well. What we want to also though do is to have the ability to record as well. So we are sort of fine tuning those parts of it as we move forward. But perhaps one other way that we can do it is sort of say, hey, look, in this meeting, these key topics were sort of covered, and also in the report here, well, this was collected via this way, so then everybody, the elected members, can see how it was collected. If it was formally around a table like this, or more informally at the library space or something like that. But definitely there is a move towards within the country to more informal rather than the traditional hearings where we do it in a setting like this. So encouraging more people to be involved.
And part of that will be time frames. For example, if people want to submit at 7 o'clock in the evening because they're working during the day, we'll have some time slots available for that sort of thing.
Yes, and this is sort of signalling to our elected members as well that there may be some after hours work coming up, and that's the reason why, to encourage more submitters.
Okay, thank you.
Excellent. Any other questions? Recommendations then A, B, C and D have been summarised by Christina. I'm not going to bore you by reading them verbatim. Someone like to move? Second, Tamer, all in favour?
Right.
Against? Carried. Thank you. Thanks, team. You can see how agile we are. Righto, that includes the council-related portfolios at this stage, and I'm going to hand over now to Nigel with the three waters and waste portfolio part of today's meeting.
So you go to item 34.3.5, item 56, common wastewater treatment plant nitrogen reduction project. And we have Judy and Patrick to speak on this report.
Okay, so,
Patrick?
how's everyone? Good?
At the moment.
So far. Keep it
It
up there.
depends, does it? I'll take the report as read. I'll just read through a couple of quick statements that are within the report, so you're all on the same page. The Cromwell wastewater treatment plant was upgraded in 2018 and a membrane plant was installed. At the time, the new plant met all ORC consent requirements. The preliminary design identified that a further treatment process would need to be added to remove nitrogen from the treated discharge in the future. And this date was dependent on population growth. So as you all know, population growth has been pretty high in Cromwell, and now the nitrogen content is exceeding the consented limits. So the ORC issued an abatement notice in October 2021, after we'd surpassed our limits a few times. And so therefore we need to progress this project to reduce nitrogen. Following investigation of options with assistance from Becker Consulting, moving bed biofilm reactor, or MBBR, is seen as the best current solution for nitrogen reduction. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
And if I could just add, that is being used at hardware, and we've been working and liaising with Carol deceased staff around how that plant's operating over there to check that it's suitable for this kind of weather conditions we have in Central Australia. Another clarification, within the report, we have identified that the options have been sized to meet consent conditions for the life of the Cromwell wastewater treatment plant consent through to 2048. So just want to nudge that they'll meet the current consent conditions, but there is a requirement in those consent conditions to have another reduction in 2031, that this isn't being designed to meet that reduction. We will need to liaise with the ORC around that requirement.
Okay, thank you. Questions?
2018, we would have had development contributions knowing that this would be coming down the line, would we not? Would not be a part of the cost of our development contribution?
Yeah, it has been. Yeah, and this is funded from
It is.
development contributions.
And if we're talking about the future, have we got enough development contributions to take it to the next stage? as part of, from 2018, knowing we're gonna go out there that far, I guess.
So every time we do a long-term plan, we reforecast what the capital projects will need to be to meet our future updated growth projections. And the growth, it also looks back 10 years and it looks at what the work we've been doing has actually cost, because we're always forecasting. And we do a recalculation every 3 years. So we're collecting DCs for Cromwell for these kinds of projects.
Well, how many times have we failed with that? How many times have we failed? I mean, is it a point of,
Well, the quick stats I looked at in that period before we got the abatement notice in October 2021 was about 19 times.
in the lifetime of the plant?
No.
In that sort of year to 18 months.
So the nitrogen limits will go up and down depending on the time of the year. But we particularly fail through the winter periods typically.
And the abatement motors, are they a cost to our business, or just you need to look at this?
If we don't take action to address the issues that have created the abatement notice, then there will be a significant cost to us.
Yeah. And this nitrogen will get us into the threshold that we need to be in, because obviously we don't want to put treated wastewater into a waterway that's not meeting those limits.
I think, we've identified this as a critical project to proceed because the long-standing nature of the abatement notice is it does need to be actioned, and the only way we've done a lot of work at the plant on other periphery things in the initial hope that was going to reduce nitrogen limits to that within consent limits, and that come to the realisation that it needs another bit of kit on it. It's just not, there's nothing we can do that doesn't involve building something new.
Yeah, okay.
Just a couple of questions on the MBBR. Talks about small plastic beads, which are obviously not great for the environment. Do they last indefinitely, or do they need to be replaced?
Yeah, they do need replacement, like anything that are operational, so. Yeah.
They do last a long time,
Yeah.
don't they?
Yeah. Didn't they say about 15 years?
Yeah.
15 years they last. Which is
50, I thought.
Yeah.
But I have to check that, but yeah,
I thought you said it was about 15 years.
the main operational cost for them is electricity. Really.
Yeah, and that was my point. As this is the most expensive power option, and it's good to see that you have gotten the long-term plan looking at solar, because I think that's something that we really need to be looking at with these increased power costs over all these plants, is how can we reduce that?
So so obviously we've worked on long-term plans, now we've been having annual plan, but in that preliminary work we've done for the 2025 long-term plan, we do have some funding in what will be year 1 of 2025, and then year 2 of 2024 to get some expert advice around all of our sites to look at how we could operate them differently and bring in alternative energy sources, because electricity is a significant driver of operational cost increase.
Yeah, because you can see through the options that although the capital cost is the cheapest, the operational cost is the highest.
Yeah.
So to look at mitigating that, we look at the option of solar, but obviously we need your permission to go to the next step to look at that a bit deeper into the more detailed design and see how, how we could make that work.
And is it something that you could then replicate on other sites, so that if you got a design, you wouldn't have to get a design for every plant, that you'd be able to replicate?
You still need, everyone has its own needs.
Yeah.
But yeah, it could at least be a proof of concept.
There's quite a few different things that we need some advice around, how we operate pumps, the kind of drives we have on the pumps and things like that can result in increased or reducing electricity costs as well.
And the operational costs, just in terms of staff time, are similar to the other options?
Yes, I mean, there won't be a lot of extra time other than monitoring, which on a large plant like that, you need a fair bit of operator input in. So I think they said at Harvey,
Was there a charge a day or an extra day or something a week?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you felt that one of the advantages of this option, the preferred option, is that it's prefabricated or site, and that will reduce the chance.
Yeah, chance of construction cost variations. Anything that you're on site, you've got a lot more unknowns when you're constructing on site, whereas if you're constructing in a factory, you take away those variables.
So I've got another question.
Right.
Is there any way to reduce the nitrogen levels prior to entering the plant, or is it generated as part of the process?
It's in the influence.
Yeah, you could, to change your mind. It depends, because the profile of what's going into your raw wastewater can change with different industries and that. Some will have higher nitrogen loadings than others. So it is quite difficult.
Is there any opportunities for us to reduce that via an education aspect, or is there something that people are putting in their water, or something that we're doing that could reduce the level? Because I look at, and it ties into the next question, and I think it's coming in Joyce's paper, is obviously it's an issue in the winter months as opposed to the summer months. How many months of the year are we not compliant?
So it varies from plant to plant. The likes of Roxburgh, we're compliant through the summer months, but we can have periods in the coldest winter months where we're not compliant.
Yeah.
And the problems become more consistent.
Maybe because the microorganisms get killed off by the cold.
They don't perform as well.
Yeah, a bit like you.
Thank you.
That's important.
Because something that people could be,
On the cold.
or industry could be doing that might reduce that.
Look, I think what we know from our experience is we can educate, but people will still flush things down the drain that they think, you know, we can see that from fats that go down the drain, you know, even though education is helpful, it doesn't solve the problems, because it's always a part of the community that keeps on doing these things, or people sometimes drop things down that they shouldn't drop
What
down.
shouldn't
They
be
know
going
they
into the
shouldn't.
drain that's raising nitrogen levels specifically?
Well, I mean, without getting too far outside my brief, the septic receival unit has been an issue for council for some time. It's quite close to the plant. It's getting some high nitrogen material put into it, so I'm told. There are issues with that. So that's one area that the operational team is looking at to try and improve in the future. But, you know, we've got customers that need to get rid of their waste, and some of that waste is a bit more difficult to treat than others.
So we do need a trade waste bylaw, and we will be addressing that as we go forward. We're kind of not bothered with all that stuff because we were going into a new water entity, and we were specifically told by them not to touch trade waste in the transition period. But we've now been given until 2026 to do a complete review of all our free water bylaw requirements.
Yeah.
So we are going to have to do that. And look, I do have a project in the long-term plan. I think we've got some money this year to do some investigation about building another septic discharge point that's not as close to the ponds, because we think the closeness of the site to the ponds is shock loading the ponds, that if it got mixed in and diluted a bit with other waste in the network, it wouldn't be as can have this quite the same effect.
So at the moment, there's nothing that we can say out to our communities, don't do this or that. It's at a higher level.
Don't have any suggestions there, Liam?
Well, nitrogen is a key part of waste, of human waste, so we can't get rid of it apart from not using toilet essentially.
And
so,
obviously we're not going to have people to do that.
But just a point of system, and the same with septic waste really, that emanates from mostly from septic tanks and things which is, you know, part of the service we provide to the community. And that's a key part of what we need to treat in our wastewater system. And unfortunately, oxidation pond type systems aren't good at removing nitrogen.
The other key thing there is that we can only take septic waste at Cromwell, at the moment. And while it's not ideal, it's the best option we've got of all of our sites. And so if there's other upgrades happening in our network in the future, then that will enable us to spread some of that loading around a bit more instead of it all being crunched.
You've just been taught up the same as agriculture.
Yeah.
They're now having to pay for it.
When we became vegans.
Yeah.
Don't go there, no.
A couple of things from my point of view, the need to look at trade waste. It's been a long time coming, so I'm pleased to hear that we're going to do some work in that space to try and look at that, because I think I'll go to Tony's point about saying education. I don't think the issue that we're getting of the shock loading is coming from the normal household, it's coming from industrial type processes, I'd imagine. And you know, the fact that we will probably need to, those people should likely pay more because they're incurring more of the cost, and we need to find out what is actually they're doing in the first place. So I think that's really positive to hear that's going to happen. I am mindful of the operational cost, because the capital cost huge of these things is the cheap part, to be perfectly honest. You know, we're funding it from collection, from contributions we've already had. And the price of energy is not going to get any cheaper in the foreseeable future. So I think I'm wondering if it would be helpful to, one of the recommendations talks about the fair documents of construction procurement, but whether we should go one step further and encourage through the recommendation or the resolution we make to explore ways of reducing the cost of energy. And I'm not going to say put solar panels in, just reducing the cost of energy, because I think that's a clear direction that we would you'd probably be following anyway. I think for us as governors to give that signal saying, well, we're mindful of it. Because, this is a much cheaper capital project, comes at the cost, and to me seems to be more effective than the others as well. So it's a bit of a no-brainer, but I think to provide the direction to go with that, would that be helpful or unhelpful, or?
To be fair, we're probably doing it anyway, but it's always helpful to have your support to do the things we thought we should do.
Yeah. This is obviously an initial capital cost trade-off, isn't it? And we need to dig a bit deeper into the more detailed design to see what those ancillary project costs are going to be.
The other point I was going to make is that the issue of septage and dilution is the solution approach, and for that it's clear you put the concentrated septage and at the point of discharge. It is going to shock load, so it does make a lot of sense. So let's go somewhere else to get a chance to be part of the wider network. I'm sure you'll come up with the right location to put that.
And look, I'm sure when it was designed to be here in the first place, they thought that it was the right thing to do too. It's that benefit of hindsight's a lifetime thing to say, actually, it's not helping the situation with the health of the ponds. It was good for other reasons. But not for the ponds.
Okay, good to you. Any other questions? I'm just wondering when, to Neil's point with the recommendation C could have something added to it.
I've got a recommendation E.
Okay.
But we could combine.
Yeah, answer your point there.
Yeah, I'm going to say use the word energy, not power. Energy. Yeah. Okay. Sorry, I don't know if there's really a difference, but.
So this is specifically about the Cromwell wastewater treatment plant. So you want to go wider than
You
that?
just want to say in wastewater operations, because it's pumps and plants.
Well, I think this one can only be in relation to this particular project here. So I would have said actually, Cromwell. And then clearly there's a signal from that you'll be doing as a matter of course. When the next time a paper comes to us about somewhere else that has energy cost, you'll have that in your recommendation.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah. There's always had that to that.
Of the Commonwealth.
Yeah, in that case, change it back to plant. Use it specific.
Yeah. That addresses what I was raising.
About that.
Okay. So any further questions? Okay, we've got recommendations A, B, C, D, and E as is on the screen. Do I have a mover and a seconder? Sally? And Cheryl. Any further discussion, questions? All those in favour? Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We move to page 163. Which is the marked wastewater compliance status update. Please.
Sure. I take this report as read. Given a compliance update for each site. Alexandra, the last compliance sample was in Jan 2024, and all parameters are compliant except for total suspended solids. However, the results for the suspended solids did show an improvement in the last 3 results. And if that trend continues, we believe that we will be compliant by the next sampling round, which is in April 2024, next month. An application to extend the abatement notice has also been lodged. Cromwell, the nitrogen levels in the discharge continues to be compliant with the resource consent conditions. Roxburgh, desludging of the ponds is progressing, and we expect that the work will finish before the end of April. Naisby, we have received the capacity report for the treatment plant, and that report is being currently reviewed by staff. Testing of the infiltration beds to identify the effectiveness is also progressing. Rainfairly, same as Naisby, we have received the capacity report for the Rainfairly wastewater treatment plant, which is also being reviewed. Just a short update. So, any questions?
Thank you. Comments, questions?
And you'll note I want to take Cromwell was compliant or not, which is the warmest month. We get a sticker.
So overall, and considering the challenges some of our plants have, our position is not that bad.
I don't think I could comment on that because I hate that comment on knowing what everybody else's position is, and I don't know that. So we're making progress. Yeah, we're making good progress.
Okay. I should maybe ask for a comment on the recommendation, which is within the recommendations is that we go from a monthly report to every 2 months. That's recommendation B. Would you like to comment on that?
And sometimes the scale of change within a 4-week period isn't that high. So kind of going from 6-week to 4-week meetings means we're sometimes in 2 weeks' time we will be writing the next report. So sometimes things can change much in that 2-week period. So we think going to an 8-week reporting cycle would be more beneficial.
Thanks, Judy.
Nigel, the only thing I would note, I would expect that something market happened between times. There might be saying actually go report this month because something happened that I'm not going to wait another month to tell you that.
Right.
Would that be reasonable?
Yeah, and look, I think the fact that we were in a catch-up mode, it was important that we were reporting monthly. We now starting to get more on top of things. So yeah, but if something happened, we would certainly come back.
Are you suggesting you want that in the recommendation?
No, I'm just saying that just I expect that if something hits the fan, we're going to hear about it pretty quick, and it's not going to wait for 2 meetings because we got it last one.
Look, and normally I would advise you.
Yeah. Okay.
Just on the Ramfleet part, wetlands, planting wetlands, would it not be advisable to be in touch with the Te Āki Minitara group that have been doing that work in the region, so botanists and everything else, rather than?
Yeah, so I think it's just a wastewater discharge wetland is not the same as a normal kind of a wetland. It's a constructed wetland. So we can certainly work with local groups who are growing plants, but there's some specific requirements around wastewater treatment wetlands that are different.
The point being that the people who've got the Minitara who are growing the plants, the Perera, who are doing it around effluent tanks in the Minitara and would be well worth talking to as much as a scientist and expert from anywhere.
Yeah,
I'm sure.
And look, what I would say is wastewater wetland treatment sites are, wastewater process engineers are a level of specialty that they're rare, and then getting into the wetland one's another level above, so.
Yeah, I just, my point of making is we've got those expertise now that have been come in through those groups, that we should be at least consulting with their local community groups. That's what I'm saying.
Thank you. Okay, any other questions, comments? Okay, so we have recommendations A and B. A in the report we received, the notice that the wastewater compliance updates will now come to council within 2 months. Do I have a mover and seconder?
I'll move.
And Lee? Oh, sorry, and Martin, the second.
Either or.
Questions, discussion, all those in favour? Against, carried.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Neil.
Thank you, Nigel. Move now to item 24.3.7. Proposed Eden Moor Central Otago exhibition. Welcome, Victoria.
So I'd just like to start by discussing council's priorities around this collection, or how we understood council's priorities when it was purchased. And that the reasons we picked up and why this collection was purchased by this council was to keep it and to keep it together in its entirety, to keep it in the region, so that it really does demonstrate that juxtaposition between a high quality fashion collection and a stark, stunning but very rural community environment, and to really help our region celebrate the magic of this collection through this enigma of Eden Hall, and the fact that he had his head in his clouds and feet on the ground and was doing demonstrating to us that anything is possible. And it really does help us as an exemplar of Central Otago's real difference, that real a unique point of difference that makes us special. So that's what we are working towards with this collection when we are building and growing ideas. So the goal for us over this journey since we've had is to try and develop ways of celebrating the stories as much as the garments. We recognise the garments are highly fragile and have a limited ability to be displayed, especially in this region currently when we don't have environments that can display textiles in a way that will be able to ensure their conservation going forward. The other thing too is we want to make sure that when people would see Eden for Central Otago, it is part of a chapter of many other opportunities. We don't want people to have a one-stop visit and go, yep, tick the box. We want to keep reinventing Eden for Central Otago and keep having it in different ways. So we recognise and acknowledge progress is slow with the development of ideas, and there's a number of reasons for this. We know that it conflicts with other council work that we have to do, and it can be considered as a non-core activity. We don't want this to be a burden to ratepayers, so we make sure we do this as economical as possible. We also have with a new idea or a different concept of looking after a heritage collection, we're trying different ideas, and that involves trial and error. We've had examples where we've gone after fundraising, and the tourism stat fund and the tourism recovery and restoration funds have been very helpful in developing that concept designed for the display pod, which will allow us to have garments displayed in this region, and also have helped us develop storytelling opportunities. We also went after the Ministry of Culture and Heritage grants, put a lot of time to that, and that's it. So it's just one of those things. Our ultimatum is to be minimum impact on ratepayers, and we also want to make sure we wait and get really exceptional experiences when we do go out with this. Which is why I'm here today to talk about Toitu, Otago Settlers Museum. We see this as an opportunity of really highlighting the stunning collection in an exemplary premium quality facility. It is in Dunedin where there is a high number of residents plus a high number of visitors going through. So it's an awesome opportunity to educate on the diversity of this region, and also to be a launching point into our region. Now, our goal too is to use this as an opportunity that we can talk with local opportunities here within our region to partner and develop displays here, so that not only do they see it in Dunedin, but there will be touch points throughout the region and can draw people through. That's my story.
That's your story. Thank you. Any questions? Comments, observations, Mark, I see you were
What happens
pointing.
if you don't, unsuccessful getting the funding,
Or,
the external funding you need to get this off the ground?
So the trust, the Evenmore Central Otago Trust does have, is building up a nest egg at the moment. So we have at the moment, we serve just over 100,000 from the trust. They are for a number of requests and they are tagged, a lot of them are tagged, so we're very mindful of that. But that does give us a good helping hand start. Toitū staff have been really helpful and are very willing to help us as much as possible. And we will just make it work.
So just to clarify that there is no financial implications for council and the ratepayer.
Nothing, there's nothing additional to what we're doing anyway. It's our staff time, we get operating budgets.
Yeah.
We'll operate from there.
And that the funding would come from the Edenhall Trust, not from other trusts. That's where the.
We will seek out any way that we can get funds, that we can support the Edenhall Trust to hold that money and keep it as for a longevity. Looking for new and fresh ways to, whether it's through sponsorship, other fundraising, it's kind of our role, is to stretch that money as well.
When it talks about our contribution being the trust, not council, of being budgeted around 25,000, is that a dollar figure or is that in-kind contribution with staff hours and effort behind the scenes?
It'll be probably more of a dollar contribution at this stage, but that's with the manager at Toitū, and we'll work through that, but that is to do with their costs and putting together the launch and the staff time.
And would they be charging admission to see that?
No, they won't. I think it's definitely free admission.
I have a couple of concerns just around the ratepayers who paid for this have not had the opportunity to see it. So, and what that looks like going forward. It's being photographed and yes, the photographs are toured around, and I understand there are some challenges around, a climate controlled environment. And I guess I'd love to see some information on how long we anticipate these garments to last. Like, are we going to keep them for 200 years in a box, or are they going to be viewed and displayed and celebrated? And what does it mean for the people? Because I think the biggest thing of this is not so much the extravagance of the garments and how special they are. It ties into the story, and it's the story that makes it so interesting. And I'm just a little bit worried that people in Central Otago haven't had the opportunity to engage in that story. And yes, I agree, Toitū is an amazing venue and it would be really great. But for the average ratepayer in Central Otago or resident, a trip to Dunedin is not in the realm of possibility to go and visit something like that.
And look, it's a valid point, and we would love to be able to have the garments out. It's just that hassle of the absolute constraint of not being able to have a venue that can hold the garments in an appropriate climate control environment. And for council to be able to provide that would be 6 figures. And that's additional costs for something that is a museum, and then it's something that would be ongoing operating costs. So until we have a mandate to do otherwise, we're avoiding that at all turns. And we would also like to see these business opportunities or other ways that we can partner with businesses or venues here that we could do something together. So it's trying to be innovative to get those garments out, and until we can find an opportunity, I guess my primary concern is to make sure that they are protected.
Yeah, because it does talk about, there might be the ability for a small book launch in Central Otago and then all the main events in Dunedin. I just worry that Central Otago, where the garments have come from, are missing out on the opportunities just because in the current time, we're small, we don't have the resources, we are building an enormous hall that may have the capacity to have a show or some sorts, are those things being considered as, that nothing's happening to them where they are right now. Yes. And in terms of priorities and time to, high country, high fashion, sea level in Dunedin, does that align with the story?
So there's a number of stories in the collection. So there is a strong link to Dunedin as well through even from Central Otago. So that's what I'm trying to suggest, is that there's lots of ways that people can interact and engage with even for Central Otago, to get something new and unexpected, and hopefully sow the seed of intrigue to feed them through to the region to look for more. So seeing North Bay Country, I think there's still two stories. We are always looking for opportunities. I don't want to overpromise. There could be some things that we can come up with, and when they do, we will come and tell you that it's going on a journey and we think we can get there. At the moment, this is what we know and this is what we can achieve, so we put our foot on that and then take the next step. And if anybody in the community is keen to sponsor or be part of it, we are all ears.
And sorry, my final question. Sorry, last one. What would be effectively Toitū's contribution to this? So if we're putting in 25,000, what would be the cost? How equitable is that distributed in terms of us providing something that is amazing, but then to put on display in their premises? What are they doing?
So they will staff it, eat it, have people there. We will sell books there. We could also sell other stories about Central Otago. We will have things available there and that they will look after and be able. A lot of the money will go towards the setup, the mannequins, the padding of the mannequins so the garments fit well, the design layout, the setup, stuff that we don't have those skills in our region. So we are getting their expertise for that money.
And they're providing the climate controls.
100%, they're fully placed in boxes and walls that are all covered and
What protect the governments until such time as Brexit and Cromwell opens and we can have our own display.
Yes, and all other things. And we would hope that we've got 3 display pods being built right now, and we intend that they would be in our region so we can have it start that journey and maybe something that's responsible and that way of having encapsulated displays in Central Otago. That is our intention, one of our intentions. Other options, we are all these.
I do have a question. If we are able to go out and photograph them on people out in Central Otago, is there an option that we could hold a high-end fashion show with people actually wearing those garments that people from Central would be able to come to? Because what would be the difference of models wearing them and having their photos taken versus walking down a catwalk with them so that you can see them?
We get that question a lot, and it's a good question. And so we rely on the advice of our steering group. So we have Ian Reno, who's Mr. Papa, senior curator, and Dr. Jane Loftus, who's the honorary curator at Otago Museum. So, and the it was a bit that trial and error doing photo shoot in the first place. And they're on site already doing those garment changes and looking after the garments and everything people with kids and gloves. In a fashion parade, it's a different type of energy and quickness of change, and it's a whole different story. The other thing too with this catwalk display is sometimes they've done this, it can be couched as a fundraiser, but sometimes the cost of running can went back. So that's until we can sort of see a way that it can actually generate really good outcomes. But the main thing is around this garment.
Paula, could I just going back to Tamer's initial question about 25,000, do we know that that's the total cost for the 2 years that the?
There's no cost to the council for the 2 years. Once it's there, it's there. That Toitū will host it and maintain it in the museum. That 25,000 is the maximum cost for the setup and the launch.
So that we know further. Thank you.
And that's funded, just to clarify, and that's funded from the Ewan Law Collection Trust.
Yes, and our time.
Council time, that's, we do that a lot of places, but in terms of the dollars, it's not coming from the council funds, it's coming from the trusts funds.
And other funds that we.
But our funds, the trust will secure.
I just had a couple of questions too. So in the report, there is mention of a film documentary project, a book project, and a second photo shoot.
Yes.
So are these all potential?
No, they're actual.
Are they all potential costs to the council?
No, the book has been, the costs have been covered, so it's part of print of publishing that, and that's underway and done. The photo shoot, that's happening next month, and we have fundraised for that, and the Central Lakes Trust has given a grant, and we have funds from the Central Lakes Trust. And so we've couple of minutes for that too. And so, yeah, they're covered. The film is, we've got 3 people shortlisted for who are interested in producing a film. And the script for that is that they have to self-fund that. So that'll be 0.
So the film is, what is the intention? What's the target market for the film?
So that's what the shortlisting process is about. They're doing their pitch right now to a subcommittee about what they intend, what they think the magic of the story would be, and then if someone was
okay, and I'm dredging my memory here, but there's still in existence a committee made up of members from outside this region. And my memory tells me there was an annual cost of 38,000 to fund that committee.
So there was a full point to council requesting that, and council said no. So there was money put aside to set them up, and now we have a small retainer budget. I want to say it's, well, we've had them down once, so we've that was sort of a cost when we bring them in. And the photo shoot will bring most of those people down again, but that's covered through that. And we have Skype meetings now, so we look after them as best we can, but it's from a distance, so it's minimal. We cover it now.
Right, so that line is okay. Thank you. And again, just to refresh my memory, what percentage of the collection is actually available and in a condition to be able to be used in a public showing or wearing?
So we actually went through the whole collection last month, early this month, because we've been measuring them for the photo shoot. And so we've had a pretty good look at, and most of them are good. That's the beauty of polyesters, they last really well. The risk around things like feathers, and when you move them, the feathers can dislodge, and some of the elastics can get a bit loose, but most of them are okay. Eden had a very diverse collecting style, so there's quite a variety of garments in the collection, so some of them might be a bit more subjective in taste, but they're all lasting.
I asked the question because in my mind that something like 60 to 70% of the collection was not in a condition where it could be publicly shown or worn. So you're telling me
I think they're doing well. I think I wouldn't want to be putting some of them on people or stretching those elastics, and some might have to lay flat on a display. So we have to be careful on how you display them, and certainly we have to think about that.
and you're happy that they're being stored in a condition where they're not deteriorating?
Well, I know it's like from Dr. Mathis and Dr. Freeman, and they're happy to out of them.
Yeah, thank you.
You know, any other questions?
You have one?
I trust the meeting, sorry. I trust the first, Stuart.
Tracy's questions are, how can we support this when we've asked council to trim budgets? And the second question is, what revenue are we going to make from the exhibition, if any?
So first question is status quo for budgets. Second question, so directly it's not dollars coming into the region, but it does create visitor opportunities and partnership opportunities and awareness and some lightness and some joy in a pretty tough time.
Just to summarise, my understanding is there's no cost to council other than the oversight you provide in time that's already there anyway as part of what you normally do. Yeah, there's no actual direct funds.
And a follow-up question from Tracy, is the trust going to financially benefit in any way?
Well, not directly from the exhibition. We're not charging a fee for entry. I think that's what Tracy's meaning. I would like to hope it is a really good launching opportunity for other sponsorship possibilities that we could buddy up with. So it gives us a good headline to get leverage possibilities from other
options.
Sure. Two questions. First one's probably pretty. Is there a risk that the people helping manage the exhibition are getting too precious? Picking up on Nigel and Tamer's comments that it wasn't a shed for 30 years. If we didn't pick it up and do anything with it, it would have been probably the worst state than it is now. So are we running the risk, I guess, of being too precious and costing us because we're not exhibiting it? We are. And you're probably saying, hopefully not. Second question is, has anyone approached Jane Campion about the move? Because he came to Central Otago and absolutely loved the Power of the Dog, which is completely out of that field.
Yes.
But there's actually a far better story in this one than there ever is in the Power of the Dog, in my mind.
I believe some conversations have been had, but I think people are very busy schedules, so sometimes it doesn't fit.
So she's been approached basically.
And on the other thing about the whether or not we can just being too precious, I cannot make that call. I feel I'm not a museum expert, so I leave that to the people that are in charge. Certainly, the photo shoot proved to be, more successful, and they had the women had a higher level of comfort, which is why we're doing the second one, which is even more ambitious and more. So we're stepping towards.
I'll be the biggest supporter. Have been the biggest supporter of the collection because of the story, but we're still got to be able to use it to make it justify its being. Yes, and it worries me when it gets out of our control as much as it seems to be. I feel like we're losing control of that ability while we have it. Not that I'm saying we should get rid of it, but it's got to be true. And in times like this, it's got to be seen that the beneficiary has to be the people of Central Otago. And we're really being dictated to by professionals outside of Central Otago.
And maybe I could use that as a plug for the trustees on the Eden Central Otago Charitable Trust, because we could always do with more trustees, and if people are interested, most welcome to come to the meeting. It'd be great to get those voices in the room.
Thank you. Who's going to do your job? Any more questions? Recommendations A and B. Receiving the report, and B, to approve the concept of a 2-year feature exhibition at the Neatest Kutu Otago City Museum and the Eden Central Otago Garments and Stories we launched in autumn 2025. So I'd like to move Stu, seconded Sarah. Any discussion?
I've got a question on that.
Yes.
2-year feature exhibition, if a different opportunity came up in that 2 years whereby Central Otago could display it, because the council of One Lotto and we're building a hall with a climate controlled display area. We will. Is there the ability to withdraw it and to take the dresses back prior to the 2 year? Is it a contract, or are we just saying, yes, you can use them until we need them, or?
At this stage, it's a yes, we can use them. We haven't drawn up a contract yet, but we will. And I would suggest that we've got over 270 garments. I think we could do both.
Right, anyway.
Yeah, there's a lot of quality. There is a lot of depth to make.
And can we be clear that if this is to go ahead and be approved, that opportunities for these garments to be viewed in person within Central Otago will continue to be explored as a priority, and that things like book launches within Central Otago where the story originates will be explored as a priority over other areas outside of our region.
Right. Good. No more questions?
I just further to Tamer really. When the collection was bought, and then what do we do with it? One of the resolutions of the council when they seeded going through the collection, evaluating it and storing it was that the aim was that the collection would generate revenue so that it was not a cost to the council. And obviously you've done fundraising and partnership. I wouldn't like to lose sight of the fact that it needs to generate some revenue. And it seems to me that the danger is that as a collection, you keep circling around it and displaying it, albeit not even within the region Tamer's point. And it just becomes a continuing cost where you find to cover costs and sponsorship and not generating any revenue as a collection of itself. We could set it up we'll do a film of it and charge people money to actually access the collection. And I think, and I just wonder whether that, it might be unfair to say, whether that goal is either unachievable or being lost sight of.
If I could answer that, it hasn't been lost sight of. It is a tough one to achieve, especially when you look at museums and how much museums cost. So our primary goal is to have a zero impact or minimal impact on council. And then the next goal is to create revenue. It is a heritage collection, and so we're working on a long game to try and get that to happen. But I appreciate it'd be great if it's going quicker, and I'd be the first to acknowledge that to me.
Thank you. I also wonder though, while not Nigel said is I think largely true, having done the initial purchase with those intentions, we've then transformed into the even more central targeted trust. And I think the council has said, we'll let the trust look after that. On the basis that we'll support it through staff resources as we do. And the vision of council getting money back is no longer held, money goes to a trust. So I think that we've taken a step away from that. So I get what you're saying, but I think we've moved on. So it's not to make it a council cost centre, other than some changes from Paula and her team. So I think we've probably got that covered and moved on. Thank you. Any more questions, observations?
Just one, I would, and I don't know the answer to this, and Paul would tell me, but the work that's been done by the trust and of us, the valuation of that collection now would have doubled in value, tripled in value. And if you actually took that as if annualised the return on that, it's been a good investment, but it's given a whole new dynamic, and I think it's pretty important while we're in the harvest we've got. Like the value of the collection now is way, way more than what it was when we purchased it.
And that's relevant to the recommendation.
That's relative to the collection.
Any other questions?
I do just tied into that, I just wondered, is it anticipated, recognising that this comes from expert advice, that it would be charged out effectively? That if somebody wants to display it in their museum or their facility outside of this area, actually you have to pay to hire our collection. When does it reach that? Or does it not reach that?
We would love it to reach that point. We've got to find someone who would pay that, and then we would love it.
Does it start at, does it start when we say, yes, you can have it, but you need to pay?
Yes, we have, yes. Then look at the cost of maybe as an opportunity too. And so we've got to work within the museum rules and standard practices as well. But I guess the difference, between this proposal and a cost, revenue generating proposal is that this is the way that Torture works, and this is an opportunity we had to display it. So I haven't talked to Torture about charging them because this was an opportunity that we would not normally get.
Any more discussion about the recommendation resolution be moved? No, I'll put it all in favour.
Aye.
Against, carried, thank you. I'm just wondering, and I didn't do it before we did the resolution, was that I think it will be useful next time the report comes about the Eden Hall collection is to just make sure we cover off the relationship with the trust and what we as a council have given them the powers to do. Because I'm wondering, does this need to come to council? I'm not saying it shouldn't have, but I'm just wondering in terms of how we've got the trust set up as to what we get to have a say over and not have a say over. And it's not a prison, just saying, be good to know, because then,
well, it's been paid for by the rates, where does that?
What does the trustee say about what we have to approve and not approve?
Personally, to come to council, because although the work that Paula and others are doing with an operational budget, there's still that opportunity cost and staff time being used. And that's got to be recognised.
What I'm saying is I think we should see what the trustee provides for the trustee to do, so because then our decisions can be in light of that. So it says this is the right thing to do because we said that's what we give the trust the power to do.
I reckon Nigel will be a really good guy in the movie.
Right, let's move on then. Thank you, Paula. Keep up the good work. So Nigel and Stu have just found out they can't put either out, so that's all good.
I'm sure they'd show though, wouldn't
it? Please. Let's move on to status reports now. Item 23.8 is the March 24 governance report. And from Wayne, anything Wayne you want to bring to our attention on that?
No, there's just an update on, the pretty quickly on, what had happened in the ground sound.
Cool. And then also attached to that on page 189 is the council status updates. Anybody, any questions or observations about that?
I'm in that next part.
Just gonna ask on page 200 with being changed to 19, when is that now likely to be operative? Hearing can reducing through final draft of decision for relief.
Louise, do you want to update, please?
So the submitters have been notified it is an appeal period. And once that is through, then it comes off.
That's not too far away.
That depends if there's any appeals.
Nice.
So the deliberations are complete, have been concluded. The recommend report is all but done. And then the process from that, in terms of notifying the plan change decision, and then for the appeals, then who knows how long that may or may not take if we get them. Any other questions?
And is that the same for page 207 for plan change 22 to date? Fine. If that's very far away.
I'm not sure exactly where it's at, but I'll find out.
It said 2 hearing date to be finalised,
So there's been no hearings with that one yet.
So that's it.
So there's been no hearings, so there's been no decision made. So that's months away, I would suggest, on that basis.
We're just working really hard on it with the brain get a result. Okay.
Yep.
And I'm here to comment on that as well. That plan change 20, which might have been what when we just covered on, waiting on those hearing dates to be confirmed and the delay on that. But also the resealing of the airport.
Yeah, thank you.
It says,
Have you got?
page 206. Copenhagen had been out and inspected it and then done another inspection. We'd been out with them. It's all fine. It's been sprayed. It's all fine. And now there's cracks and it's all a big problem and gonna need heaps of extra work.
This is a
How can it have been reviewed and site visited and looked at and checked and now all of a sudden there's a problem?
Facing significant increases in cost.
I'll get a full update.
Yes, well, the key thing is the report will come back to council for consideration of funding for additional costs. So I guess we'll find out when the report comes.
But, and it says remediation will be required, yeah, if Martin says it's significant cost, but it's been checked on at least 2 occasions prior to, and it's looking all good. And then it says that cracking might occur, and I just wondered if a person with a pilot license could say if there's an issue with cracking when you're landing a plane or taking one up.
It's a big crack.
Just do you want me to give you a quick update?
Yes, please.
So, Fulton have gone out and done a quick assessment of the runway. So it's a visual assessment, non-invasive. They've now come back to say, they recommend a more invasive approach to actually check all the base course and the makeup below the runway surface. It's a small price to pay, in which might significantly reduce the amount that they've quoted in doing resealing the runway. Because at the moment, with material prices going up, it's actually looking like it's getting to a higher price, and Tori's busy scripting a report to come to council in the future date. So that's where we're at the moment. And with the spraying and the like, they sprayed, nothing happened, and then they recommended spraying again. And we've gone, well, we actually think we shouldn't be paying for this because you sprayed when you recommend we shouldn't be spraying. It's supposed to be sprayed when it's moist and just after a rain, and they were spraying the driest times. So we've kicked that back to the contractor.
Okay, so the issue with the existing base was identified on subsequent testing.
Yeah. And it might not be an issue.
Yeah.
So they've done a visual inspection on, so where it's exposed, and they're saying they just need to do a little bit more invasive testing to establish whether there is an issue or there isn't an issue.
But when they built the airport, there would have been compaction test done on the gravel then, so we'll have that information there, won't we?
Yeah, they've got all that stuff, but over time in deterioration and expansion, because we've got temperature fluctuations from really cold to really hot, they can affect it. So same with grading.
David?
Yeah, it's just, we haven't resurfaced that yet, have we?
No.
So just, yeah.
All right. Any other questions on the governance updates? Someone like to move that we receive that report, please? Move Tammy, seconded Sarah, all in favour? Against, carried, thank you. Let's move on to item 24 point.
Why? Has Tracy been kicked off the meeting?
She's still listening.
No, she's not. She said she can get there.
Okay. Well, fair for the times.
Probably shoot for the on it.
You
Right,
just text me to say the discussion was yes or no.
let's move on to item, in the meantime, while waiting for, because that item 24.3.9 on page 216 is the minutes of community board meetings. Manikato Community Board, every someone move to receive that, please. Tamer, Sally, all in favour?
Aye.
Against, carried. The date of the next meeting is the 24th of April 2024. And on page 221, there is a resolution to exclude the public for the reasons given. Someone like to move? Tamer and Cheryl, all in favour? Against, carried. Thank you. Public excluded.
Lunch.